Hello again, everyone. Great to be with you. Here we are, quickly moving into Lent, and our gospel today is from the 17th chapter of Matthew. 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter and James and his brother John and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became bright as light. Suddenly there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking with him. Then Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will set up 3 tents here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." While he was still speaking, suddenly a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my Son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they fell to the ground and were overcome by fear. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, "Get up, and do not be afraid." And when they raised their eyes, they saw no one except Jesus himself alone. As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus ordered them, "Tell no one about the vision until after the Son of Man has been raised from the dead." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Change. Whether we see it as good or bad, wanted or unwanted, it's rarely easy or comfortable. When we experience change, we can't help but wonder, what just happened? We ask ourselves, what do I do now? Sometimes we may sigh with relief. Other times we may weep with disappointment or sorrow. There are many different ways to deal with change. You and I know what that's like. We've all woken up to change in our lives, America, and in the world. We've all gotten up that next morning wondering just what happened and what do we do now? Sometimes it was change we wanted, and other times it was change we never wished for or wanted. Sometimes we experienced the change as positive and good. Other times the change was painful and a loss of something we valued. Whether we see it as good or bad, desired or not, change always comes with consequences, challenges, and questions. I suspect every one of you could tell a story about the change that you've experienced, the changes that are happening in your life right now, or the changes that you hope for or that you fear may happen. How do we live in the midst of change? What anchors are there when it seems the world around us, as well as within us, is changing? I wonder if the disciples in today's gospel might be asking the same kind of questions, and if they too are feeling the wind of change blowing through their lives. And here's why I say that. Immediately before Jesus takes Peter, John, and James up the mountain, he tells them and others that he must suffer, die, and be resurrected on the 3rd day. He will tell them this again after they come down from the mountain. What happened on that mountaintop took place between Jesus' 2 statements of impending change. Maybe that event, what we call the Transfiguration, was about preparing and helping the disciples to live through the coming change. Maybe the Transfiguration story has something to teach and show us about how to live in the midst of change. Maybe that's why every year the Transfiguration is the gospel we hear on the last Sunday after the Epiphany, the Sunday before we enter the season of Lent, and a season that, oh, by the way, focuses on change. Change, whether on the mountaintop of life or in the valley of the shadow of death, is reality for all of us. Now, we heard 3 key things in this gospel. Listen to him, get up, do not be afraid. Let's look a little deeper into those. Listen to him. One of the things I am aware of in the midst of change is how many voices begin to speak. Some are outside of me, and some are from within. There are voices of commentators chattering about what is happening and what should be done, voices of judgment, voices of second guessing, voices of fear. There are voices of self-doubt, self-criticism, and all the shoulda, woulda, couldas. Some voices tell us to run and hide, and others tell us to stand and resist. Some voices ask questions and want explanations. Other voices deny what is happening, blame or declare it to be the end of the world. So many voices cry out for attention, but not every voice is helpful or worth listening to. Some voices may sound sweet, but they are not good for us. The story of the Transfiguration says there is only one voice to listen to, the voice of God, which speaks from the bright clouds overshadowing Peter, James, and John, saying, "This is my Son, the beloved. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." What if in the midst of change we sought to hear and listen to that one voice, the voice of Christ? What if we kept our ears open to what he is saying in our life and in the world today? To let ourselves become aware of and attentive to what he is saying and doing, to let his concerns and desires become our concerns and desires, to let his way of engaging life and the world become our way of engaging life and the world. It would mean that whatever change comes upon us, it does not have the final word. There is another voice. Jesus is always speaking a word larger and more powerful than all the other voices. In the midst of change, Jesus speaks a word of life, hope, forgiveness, mercy, beauty, generosity, courage, healing, and love. Jesus speaks these words to you and for you and me. Are you listening to his voice? Get up or rise up. I suspect we've all faced changes that have caused us to stumble and fall, paralyzed us, or left us overwhelmed. Again, this is not about whether the change is perceived as good or bad. It's about remaining or regaining our balance and getting our feet back under us. It's about stepping into a new life when we aren't quite sure what that looks like, or if there really is a new life awaiting us. The 3 disciples, Matthew tells us, fell to the ground and were overcome by fear. Jesus touches them and says, "Get up," but it's more than just get up. A more literal translation would be something like, "Be raised up." Be aroused from the sleep of death, or maybe even be resurrected. The word John uses here is the same verb he uses when Jesus heals the paralytic, telling him, "Stand up." Jesus takes the hand of the dead girl of the synagogue leader, and the girl got up. Jesus instructs the 12, "Raise the dead." Jesus foretells of his own resurrection, and the angels tell the women who came to Jesus' tomb, "He is not here, for he has been raised," as he said. Jesus comes to us in whatever circumstances of change we find ourselves, touches us and says, "Get up, be raised." It's the promise that though life has changed, it has not ended. Somehow, new life is hidden in the midst of change, and even when we can't see it or do not believe it. God uses the changing circumstances of our lives and world to bring us into new life. Now, I'm not suggesting that God directly causes change to occur, but I'm suggesting that God never wastes a chance to draw us into new life. Do not be afraid. Most of us, I suspect, live with some level of fear. Change often brings about fear, and fear of losing what we love, value, and desire. And sometimes it's the fear that comes with getting what we want. In the midst of change, Jesus says, do not be afraid. He speaks to the heart of the human condition. They are the words we need to hear when we are raised up and back on our feet. His words do not magically eliminate our fear. Instead, they are the call to take a first step into a new and changed life despite our fear. They are the assurance, once again, that change does not have the final word. Christ does. We are not called to be fearless, but to be courageous in the midst of change and fear. I don't know what changes you're dealing with. Maybe it's in your marriage or with your children. Maybe it's the death of a loved one. Maybe it's about your health, your age, your physical or mental well-being. Maybe it concerns your work, your job, or your income. Maybe it's a dream or plan that didn't work out. Maybe you are on a road to recovery and well-being. Maybe everything has fallen into place for the first time and you feel alive. Listen to him. Be raised up. Do not be afraid. What if those words are holy wisdom for time of change? What if they are the means by which we step into our own transfiguration? Maybe it wasn't Jesus who changed on that mountaintop. Maybe it was Peter, James, and John. Maybe their eyes were open and their seeing changed so that everywhere they looked, they saw Jesus himself alone. Maybe they saw Jesus for the first time as he really was. If that's true, and I believe it is, then it means that every change, whether good or bad, wanted or unwanted, joyful or sorrowful, is illuminated with divine light and filled with God's presence. Listen to him. Be raised up. Do not be afraid. And all God's blessed people say, Amen. Have a wonderful week.